Hi, Jeff Simon here for SocialFlight. You know, when I first purchased my 1975 A36 Bonanza, I took it to a service clinic being run by the American Bonanza Society. At that clinic, a technician directly from Continental Motors inspected my engine from beginning to end and produced this 3-page report documenting all the details of my engine health and letting me know a lot that I needed to know about maintenance moving forward and how to properly operate my engine. So when it came time to exchange the cylinders on this aircraft due to an airworthiness directive, I decided to fly down to Mobile, Alabama to Continental Motors itself to learn about their cylinders and also to get the work done by Continental Motors Services. Continental Motors Services has the technicians on site that are the factory reps. They know exactly how to do the delicate task of a complete top overhaul on this engine. And so join me for this journey. We're going to fly down to Fairhope, Alabama, the home of Continental Motors Services. Then we're going to go to Mobile and actually visit the factory. We're going to get a tour of how they build these engines from scratch. We're going to learn about the cylinders themselves, and we're also at Fairhope going to learn about how they overhaul engines. So when you choose the factory, you can understand where your engine's going and what's happening along the way. So join me for this exciting journey. Let's get started. All right, so we just finished our 1,000-mile-plus trek down here to Fairhope, Alabama. And we came down to Fairhope for one reason, and that is Continental Motors Services. I'm here with Tony Campbell, General Manager of Continental Motors Services. How are you doing, Tony?
I'm good, Jeff. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. You know, we did not have a choice with the fact that the cylinders had to come off of our A36 Bonanza. That was just due to the fact they were TBO'd with an airworthiness directive. But we did have two other choices, and that is what cylinder are we going to go with, and then also who's going to do the work. Now, when it came to choosing the cylinder, we did a lot of research, and the bottom line is we decided to go with Continental cylinder on a Continental engine, and your NiC3 cylinders because of their predictable break-in, and I think most importantly for our environment, with the ability that the nickel coating gives for being in a cold weather and also a coastal environment for corrosion protection and the way that we fly the aircraft.
Well, it's an excellent cylinder. It's excellent for your application with it. I think you're going to be very happy with your choice to go with the nickel cylinders. I think you're putting checks in all the right boxes.
That's great to hear. And the other decision, of course, that we had to make had to do with who's going to do the work. Now, replacing one cylinder on an engine is maybe not as big a job as it could be, but when you're replacing all 6 cylinders, you're getting about as close to a major engine overhaul as possible. You're basically left with only the case, and that is a really big job. And so it's very, very important that the work be done correctly, and that is the other reason, of course, that we came down here to the experts and the folks who actually build these engines, Continental Motors.
Well, as you mentioned, Jeff, it is a fairly invasive procedure. We have a strong team with the skill and experience necessary to do the job, to do it effectively, and to get you back in the air quickly and safely.
Excellent. So I really appreciate that. We're in very good hands. So we're going to take you along for the process of disassembling the engine, getting everything ready, putting these new cylinders back on the engine, and then all the other steps that are also so critical, having to do with break-in and fuel setup and everything else that we know that we're here with the experts at Continental Motors Services. So let's bring you along for that journey and see what's involved in getting a complete overhaul on SocialFlight's A36 Bonanza. Okay, we're at the beginning of day 2 here on our cylinder replacement of SocialFlight's A36 Bonanza. Ken's been hard at work over from Continental Motors Services. He's handled that side of the engine in disassembly. I handled this side of the engine in disassembly. But today is all about cylinder replacement, and that work is going to be done by the experts, which is why we've come here. Right, I am here with Doug Burdick, Airframe Shop Chief Inspector for Continental Motors Services. Hi, how are you doing, Doug?
Good.
Thanks so much for the work that your team is doing here on our aircraft. So we've got all of the parts off the engine except for the cylinders themselves, and now it's time to pull those old cylinders, and then what do you do from this point forward?
At this point, we're going to pull the cylinders, do a lot of cleaning, inspection, particular focus on the Valvetrain, camshaft, install the new cylinders, torque them up, reinstall everything, and then go out for fuel system setup and initial ground break-ins.
Right, so we have this great opportunity now while the cylinder's off. When the old cylinders are off, you can really access the bottom end. And that gives us a great chance to check out the camshaft and really make sure that everything looks good. The lifters, as you mentioned, everything gets inspected, and then your team goes to work putting that in. And then you've got a specialized break-in procedure.
For the nickel cylinder, yes.
For the NiC3 cylinders. So we'll be going through the break-in procedure, and then we'll also be doing fuel setup to make sure that everything's working properly and with that. And then we're back in the air.
Yep.
All right, well, thank you so much. I really
welcome.
appreciate it. And we will stand aside and let your team get to work.
All right.
Thanks. I'm here with Chris Pollitt, Associate Vice President of Engineering for Continental Motors. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Jeff.
So one of the decisions that we needed to make was selecting the right cylinder. And when we looked into the different types of cylinders out there, we were certainly interested in the advantages of Continental's NiC3 nickel silicon carbide cylinders. Can you tell us what really are the advantages to going with that versus a plain steel cylinder?
Oh, absolutely, Jeff. The plated cylinders offer some significant advantages to pilots, particularly in the areas of corrosion resistance and break-in. Yeah, one of the worst things for a pilot is if your plane's been sitting around, you haven't had a chance to fly it for a while, and you come out, you finally get that nice sunny warm day, and you get to go flying. Do you want to worry about all the potential problems that might have happened in your engine while it's been sitting around? The intention and the reason why we've invested in the nickel silicon carbide coating technologies is all about getting pilots that confidence that their cylinders are going to be safe and reliable.
Right. Now, there's another aspect of the NiC3 cylinders I've heard about, and that is the break-in. And with cylinders, obviously, you know, one of the things that is, whether they're old wives' tales or whether they're just real experiences that people have had, there's always this concern about is the cylinder properly broken in? How long does it take to do that? And I can say from my own experience, I have had cases where a cylinder was replaced long in the past and it just never broke in right, and my understanding is that the nickel cylinders are much more predictable in that. Is that the case?
Absolutely. As we evaluated a variety of technologies to try to improve our cylinders and offer the best possible product out to our customers, one of the things that impressed us about the nickel silicon carbide coating process is that it resulted in a much more consistent and reliable wear-in, break-in process as the rings find their path along the cylinders during the initial hours of running.
Well, we're really excited to have the opportunity to get behind these cylinders, get airborne, see how they are over the next hours and years behind them. It seems like it's really going to help protect us, and so thanks so much for having us down here and for explaining what really is new with the NiC3 cylinders.
Oh yeah, glad to have you down here, and I'm very confident you're going to be very satisfied with the performance of these cylinders.
Excellent, thank you. All right, now here we have all 6 cylinders getting ready to be installed on the engine. Now, Doug went through the process of preparing these before they get installed, and what that includes putting the pistons in. Each piston gets the piston rings installed within it. Those piston rings have to be what's called clocked, which is each of those has a gap. That's how a piston ring expands and contracts and rides along the cylinder wall. And those have to be aligned in a very specific way so that the gaps are not aligned. They're each called clocked at different positions around the piston. And then Doug carefully took each one and used this tool, which has one edge of it that is beveled and allows for the rings to compress as they go in, and the other edge, which is perfectly machined with exactly the diameter of the cylinder barrel itself. You put that on the edge and carefully insert the piston. It gets seated in, and now each of these assemblies is ready to go and get installed on the engine. So Doug and Ken have now taken care of putting the Valvetrain back together on each of the cylinders, and we have one of them right here that's still open so we can take a look at it. Now what's involved in doing that is that you have the pushrod tubes in place, and then you have the push rods, and we have the rockers themselves here. What gets done is a dry tappet clearance is done while the engine is cold. The tappet clearance is while the hydraulic lifters are collapsed and in their shortest state, we go and with a feeler gauge and make sure that we're within spec of having the correct amount of distance. That makes sure that as the hydraulic lifters expand, they can take up the slack essentially in that valve train and allow the valves to operate properly. So with all of this in place now, the valve covers can go back on and we can get to the point of reassembling the rest of this engine, get it ready for break-in. So it's moment of truth time. We're going to start the engine right now and see where we go. Doug's inside the cockpit, and we should be ready to start and see how this engine comes to life. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Continental Motors and especially to thank Andrea Bertinoli for helping us get through this entire process, taking care of setting all of this up, making it all possible, but then also helping us every step along the way to make it a successful trip. So Andrea, thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much for coming down and for spending some time with us.
It's been great, and it's a great opportunity in order to share everything that you do here with all of our Social Flight members and viewers. It really gives everybody an opportunity to understand what goes into these great engines that power the aircraft we fly and keep us up in the air. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. you.